What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. Leon Angus, and today I'm going to be going through the May 2020 core update. So just when you think things couldn't get worse, Amazon's made changes, we're going through the pandemic, and then we're also being affected with traffic. These are regular kind of updates that Google make, but what the difference is between core updates and regular updates that they make daily is that core updates are of significance. So it's usually going to bring about some level of change. So many of you may have seen recently that you've seen kind of drop in your overall rankings across the board with many of your pages, and there's going to be a few things that I actually want to go over today that you can take a look at to identify whether this is because of the core update or whether it's just something else. Okay, so we'll go through how to identify that, and we are obviously going to go through all of the different steps that you can take to come out on the positive end of the update that's currently happening right now. So the update is as follows. I've actually got a printout of it here, but I'll throw up a screenshot on the screen for you. So the May 2020 core update is now rolling out live. As typical with these updates, it will typically take about 1 to 2 weeks to fully roll out. All right, so as I explained earlier, core updates actually take a little bit of a longer time to actually roll out in general. So a lot of people might immediately react to what's going on, but you won't be able to get accurate readings or accurate data by reacting to such a volatile kind of environment at the moment. Okay, so what I would recommend is that you give it some time and let it actually do its thing and settle down before you can actually get those accurate readings. But you might see a few correlating kind of articles that are dropping in the ranks opposed to some of the others, which you can obviously note down for further reference at the moment right now. So if we actually take a look at what Google have said from their Webmasters article, several times a year we make significant broad changes to our search algorithm systems. We refer to these as core updates. They're designed to ensure that overall we're delivering on our mission to present relevant and authoritative content to searchers. These core updates may also affect Google Discover. We confirm broad core updates because they typically produce some widely notable effects. Some sites may note drops or gains during them. We know these sites that experience drop will be looking for a fix, and we want to ensure they don't try and fix the wrong things. Moreover, they might not need to be fixing anything at all. What a lot of people are going to do is immediately jump out and start trying to tweak and change things, when, as Google have already stated, you might not actually even need to make any changes altogether. So the best thing you can do is let the update roll out, and then you'll be able to get a better gauge of what to do next after it's sort of settled down. And I've experienced it before and not really made any dramatic changes to my site. All it is that after you've seen the update, you're going to obviously take that second look and then see what options you have from there. So for example, Google have also stated that, you know, they always give you a heads up with these big updates. So one of the updates that they made that was quite significant was the mobile speed optimization update, and that came out in July 2018. With that particular scenario, they actually gave a warning notice months beforehand, so you're able to prepare accordingly and make the relevant changes to your website. All right, so what are a few things you can actually check out during a time like this? Well, one of them is going to be to check the Yoast plugin if you have that installed, and if you have that currently installed, there was a problem that came up recently around the time of May 4th that was to do with Yoast sitemaps. So if you are using the Yoast plugin, then you might want to check and make sure that that's working in correct order to rule that out potentially. Another one is going to be checking your Google Search Console. You can head over to any manual actions or any penalties, and you can see if there's anything that has taken place that might be affecting your site. And I know that Google have also added a speed section into the Search Console recently. So if you actually head over to the Search Console, you'll be able to see if there's any pages that are incurring significant drop in rankings due to speed or any manual actions or penalties being taken out on your website, because you want to essentially rule out all of this before you obviously, you know, then diagnose it as an update causing your rankings to drop. All right, now the next one is going to be to check your average ranking positions. Now you can do this in one of two ways. You can either, obviously, if you're using a rank tracking tool, you can go onto that tool and print it off in a CSV file and then upload it to Excel or Google Sheets. Or alternatively, you could also use a tool if you're using like Ahrefs. Of course, you can see your average ranking position, or you can go and do that on Google as well. So that's quite handy. Google Search Console, by the way, can actually head over to there and see your average positions that you're showing up for as well. And if you see a dramatic change in that, opposed to if you check it from a previous month, then obviously, you know, that will give you a good indication that something's happening site-wide. Or of course, Alternatively, you could go into Google Analytics and manually check that on a per URL, per page basis. Okay, so that's also accurate as well, and a good way to get that information. So how do core updates really work? Like, what happens when they take place? Well, I don't know exactly what's going to happen during this update. Obviously, we'll do a part 2 to this video at a more relevant time after the update has fully rolled out. But the way that updates generally roll out is that they focus on refreshing the list of results inside of Google and what Google produces for searchers. So for example, instead of de-ranking sites that are not performing very well, instead they go and find the golden sites, you know, the golden pieces of content, and bring them to the top. And the analogy that they make in the webmasters page is essentially if there were a movie reel that you wanted to refresh every couple of years, well, all of the new movies that are more relevant and more good or of higher quality are going to be the ones that you bring to the top. And of course, counterintuitively, by bringing those to the top, there are other sites that result moving down in the ranks. Okay, so it's just actually bringing the good to the top. As a result of that, you get the other sites that are deranked. Okay, now Google has actually released information on what you can do, or what information they want you to kind of take acknowledgement to during this May 2020 update. So what they've said is March 2020, since we originally wrote this post, the article that I'll share in the description box, we have been occasionally asked if EAT is a ranking factor. Our automated systems use a mix of different ranking signals to rank content. We've tried to make this mix align what human beings would agree is great content, as they would assess it accordingly to EAT criteria. Given this, assessing your own content in terms of EAT criteria may help you align it conceptually with the different ranking signals our automated systems use to rank content. Okay, so what they're essentially saying here is that although EAT is not a direct ranking factor, it actually is conceptually playing a part in other areas of your user metrics that are ranking factors. Okay, so in order for you to actually use it to its full benefit, which they're actually identifying here, you really need to make sure that your site is covering the expertise, authoritativeness, and trust. Okay, and if you actually want to know more about EAT and how you can use it to your benefit, there's a great article that Maria Haynes has actually written that you can see through the link in the description box, and that will take you over to her article where you can see more information on EAT. All right, so what Google actually followed on to say is, as explained, they said that a lot of people are gonna want something to do during this given time. So they said if you could focus on anything, it would be your content and offering the best quality of content. Now, this can be deciphered very subjectively. So you might have a different definition of what quality content is to me. So in order to actually make sure that we're on the same page, Google have actually given us a few guidelines that I'll pop up on some screenshots on the page. We've got a few questions that they'd like you to ask yourself in this given circumstance. So the top one, we've got, does this content provide a substantial, complete, or comprehensive description of the topic? Does the content provide insightful analysis or interesting information that is beyond obvious? Okay, so they don't want obvious information on your content. It needs to be unique in some way, or some way different to what you would find commonly on the internet. If the topic draws on other sources, does it avoid simply copying or rewriting those sources? Instead, provide substantial additional value and originality, so adding to the resources that you're actually sharing, not just copying pasting. Does the headline, page title provide a descriptive, helpful summary of the content? Does the headline, page title avoid being exaggerating or shocking in nature? So having a natural descriptive headline that actually tells them what they're going to get in the article. Is this the sort of page you'd want to bookmark, share with a friend, or recommend? Would you expect to see this content in a reference by printed magazine, encyclopedia, so on and so forth? So they're basically making sure that you're writing for the internet and that it's relevant to what the person's looking for. Then you've got expertise and questions. You've got a bunch of different ones here. I'll pop it on the screen. And then as we go on, presentations and production questions. So that's a bunch of different questions you can ask yourself there. And that's all actually within the Webmasters article that I'll link out to below. How do you figure out what to do? Because this is quite an interesting question. You might be thinking, all right, when this is all said and done, how do I actually know what to do in order to, you know, get the most out of of these updates, or this update, or any update that happens in future. The first thing is to let it roll out, and I'd give yourself about 4 weeks. Right now it's very volatile, so everything you do is during that period, and it's completely unknown of how this is going to roll out, so you don't know what it's going to affect or in what ways. Okay, so I would definitely say let it roll out so you got some more accurate information, so you can get an accurate reading of the information down the road. So give it about, you know, anywhere between 2 to 4 weeks before you really start drilling in and trying to note down different metrics that you're finding as a change or result of the core update. The next one I'm going to say, because everyone throws out the word of focus on quality, what I'm going to say is focus on helpful, well-structured, well-formatted content. Okay, so your content needs to be well formatted because it needs to be in the right layout for the type of keyword that you're targeting. It needs to be well formatted, so that's your grammatical errors, good writing language. If you're talking about a professional topic, then make sure you're using a very formative type of style of writing. Of course, if it's more laid back in the kind of content that you're producing or the topic you're talking about, then you can take a fun and friendly, warm approach. Make sure your introductions are on point, and make sure to use bucket brigades to keep your readers reading throughout the entirety of the content. Make sure your SEO is good on-site and off-site, so that's including things like, you know, content on page, interlinks, title tags, metas, etc. Keep everything natural. So don't, like, you know, right now start doing like some crazy backlink campaigns or some substantial unusual type of actions on your site. What you want to do is keep everything natural, especially when it's so volatile right now. You don't want to be standing out like a sore thumb to Google, so I would focus on the content side of things more than your kind of backlink strategy at this given time. And after this is said and done, what I would definitely say is if you get bumped down the ranks, then one of the key areas you can look at is look at the sites who are ranking above you and look out for the correlations amongst those sites. So for example, you can also do this on your own existing site. So if you go into Google Search Console and you see specific articles of certain types have dropped in the ranks, then obviously you would look at those articles and see what correlates amongst them. If you see that it's a bunch of different buyer intent content articles that you've written, then that might be your answer. If you see that it's a particular author that you're using on all of these articles, then that could be your answer again. So it could be something to do with author boxes and EAT, you know, so it just make sure you're looking out for similarities across articles that perform well and across articles that underperform. Okay, just to actually end this video, I've actually got a few notes on a few metrics that you can pay attention to when analyzing this. So you could look at keyword versus layout. So that means, you know, if you're doing like a Best Buy review, is it laid out in a comparison kind of way, or is it laid out in like a single product review way? You know, so are you targeting the right search intent? Like that's coming under your search intent with your layout. Okay, search intent is another one. You know, whether you're actually answering what the person's looking for, because this is a very important metric to pay attention to. Types of keywords that you're targeting and the ratios that you're keeping. So commercial versus informational keywords on your website. Are you doing 100% buyer intent, or are you actually mixing it up? And what ratios are performing well? And the way you can actually gauge this is by paying attention to your average ranking position and then seeing the actual split of informational versus commercial content that you have on your site at that given time. So if your average ranking position is like 6.2 and you're essentially, you know, 80% buyer intent and 20% informational, you might see that you reduce to a 4.2, which is obviously better in SEO, higher up the board, and you might have, you know, like a 65% buyer intent and 35% informational. So different things can actually have different effects on your site. You could also pay attention to author profiles, because as Google have stated, EAT does affect conceptually some of the other metrics on your site. That is obviously ranking factors. So if we say, you know, how many articles have they written under those author profiles, and are they credible to talk on these topics? Is the topic you're talking about, does it need an expert opinion, or is it something that's just kind of more generalized that anyone could potentially talk on? Media versus text ratios, these are also important. So obviously how much media you have in conjunction to how much text you have on a given page per type of keyword in that sense. And then we've also got average length of content. So there's many different metrics, you know, more than what I've explained here, but but that's just to get the creative juices flowing in your head, so you have more of an idea of what you need to do and the kind of metrics that you need to be paying attention to. And these are mainly on-site focused. Of course, obviously you're going to focus on your off-site stuff as well, so that's predominantly backlinks and seeing the types of links that are working. Maybe it's link insertions, maybe it's guest posts, maybe it's DA40 plus, or maybe it's based on relevance. There's going to be many different things that are going to have different effects on your website. But for the moment, I honestly wouldn't panic too much. If you want to know what's happening with my sites, I've currently seen an overall kind of drop in rankings over the past couple of days. I'm not so sure if that's from the update. It seems quite volatile at the moment. As I said, and taking my own advice, I'm going to let that roll out and then report back to you in a few weeks when I can give you some more accurate data. So as of now, if you did enjoy the video, make sure to smash the like button. If you are new to the channel, then you may want to consider subscribing. And as with always, I'll leave you on that note and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.